Hey everybody, JJ here again. I'm on quite a roll this morning talking about a lot of my favorite albums and bands and stuff like that. And so it's got me thinking about more and more and investigating some of my history with music and just some of my favorite albums I've had for a long time and always went to for different influence at different times. So this album was one of the first ones that's in my collection, which you can see. You know, there's a few records sitting back there. About, I don't would say 50 or 60 of those have been with me since I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. Somewhere in that time. I'm getting old, it's hard to remember, but a long time to say the least. For a long time, I actually didn't even have a functioning turntable, but I was still dragging these things around with me everywhere that I would live. And so luckily now I've got space to house some of the collection there. There's some more in storage, but I also have a functioning turntable so I can enjoy these records once again. And so I've been digging back through a lot of ones I haven't maybe listened to. You know, CDs came along. I'd have it on CD, and now it's streaming, and so the records kind of got, they weren't necessary to hear my favorite songs and albums. So, but it also is one of my favorite pastimes to actually sit and listen just to music and enjoying the artwork and the large format and of actual like records is it's a lot of fun for me, and it just helps kind of cement my appreciation for music and bands and stuff, and some of the effort that used to go into some of these old productions. And one of the albums that I've had as part of that original 50 is, in my opinion, if you're gonna pick like a record that's kind of the staple of rock and roll. And what I mean by as far as the sound, the kind of how rock and roll is presented. And rock and roll in its most basic form. It's just, the lyrics about cavorting and drinking and, rough lifestyles, let's say. And then just kind of like the no frills kind of likeness, like Motorhead kind of carried that with them a little bit. Metallica had that early on. It's all business. And one of the best examples for a band is ACDC of that. And this album, you likely know it. I don't know how you couldn't at this point. Highway to Hell. And this album, I had this and Back in Black. Those were Back in Black was like Frampton Comes Alive. It was like mailed to you in the with Tide samples, the old joke from Wayne's World. It was it sold 40 million copies. Everybody has Back in Black. A lot of people have Highway to Hell too, but Back in Black I think kind of gets more, a little bit more love than what this record does. And the thing that sways Highway to Hell for me is the fact that I think Bon Scott is the greatest rock and roll frontman that's ever lived. He's so compelling. He's just such a character, and he had this unique. He's Bon Scott. There's only one Bon Scott. There was no replacing him. Part of me would love in another world to be able to hear a version of Back in Black that has Bon Scott singing. No offense to Brian Johnson. He's fantastic too. But you like what you like, and Bon Scott was kind of like the he's not the brain. And Mal Young is clearly the leader of ACDC, but Bon Scott is the showman, another showman. It's so crazy that I would think that Angus Young is not the showman, but to even be able to hold your ground against somebody like Angus Young, and be the front man and still be able to captivate an audience the way that Bon Scott could. There was just something so charming and so he was very much like a guy's guy. Like, he was, you could have a beer with him sort of thing. He was relatable in a lot of ways. The subject matter is just everyday subject matter with ACDC songs. People forever go after ACDC because, they've been writing the same song for 40 years and nothing ever changes. It's just like, well, that's them. Like, just some people don't change, and clearly it's been worked for them for a long time. The catalog that these guys have it speaks for itself. And so Back to Black gets the love, but my love is devoted to this, and Bon Scott is really kind of like the reason. I love everything about that era of the band, and a shame again that Bon it didn't get to kind of go on and experience it probably would have killed them anyways too, but experience the kind of heights that the band got to. It would have been an amazing turn to see that. But getting to this album, clearly Highway to Hell, one of the most famous rock songs of all time. A huge influence I took from this album is simplicity in production. And what I mean by that is, if you're trying to, the idea is simple, and it doesn't need to be overcomplicated by, sometimes I feel production can get in the way of the idea. And, overly reverby, like just these things, and it's all these little embellishments and things. And if it doesn't add to the thing, then it's kind of bloated and unnecessary. Not that AC/DC ever did any of that, but in the 70s and into the 80s, we definitely got into that with a lot of production. And if you want bare bones production and one of the best sounding rock albums of all time, there's not a stereo system that this album does not sound good on. I guarantee you. I've been to a ton of live shows where this album is being put on to calibrate audio systems. I've been to studios where the same thing is happening. It has it's very listenable, very pleasurable listen. It's not fatiguing in any way. It's just, it is what it is. It's it's a Mutt Lange album. Mutt Lange is, I talked about him in a previous video about Pyromania, and he needs no introduction either. He's one of the greatest music producers that's ever lived. And, his record speaks for itself, and this is his kind of early, I don't know, I can't remember if this is the first record he did with AC/DC or not, but it's early work from Mutt Lange. And Mutt Lange is laying the seeds of, his production style, and, he doesn't quite get into the 80s things he was doing, and then in the 90s with Shania Twain, but just an amazing sounding record. It's so bare bones, but it doesn't feel like it's bare bones. It feels so full and alive, and that really says something. And clearly the band is amazing rhythmically. Phil Rudd, as far as drumming goes, he needs no introduction either. At some point, Phil was a huge influence of mine, and I played along to this album a lot, and Back in Black, and I'm nowhere in a caliber of Phil Rudd when it comes to that kind of thing, but you can bet your bottom dollar that I practice that stuff, knowing that this guy is somebody to admire, and for leading a band that way and being solid and reliable and things like that. And those were always traits that I really admired in Phil. But yeah, it's getting to the songs on this. Highway to Hell needs no introduction. Two of my favorite songs on this are Touch Too Much, which is got a really kind of like a bar blues bar kind of feel to it. Just kind of really slinky and sultry, and it's an amazing rock song. And then Walk All Over You, which is a song I had a cover band, and we were playing Walk All Over You, which was a lot of fun to play. But my favorite song on the album is actually Girls Got Rhythm. And it's such a fun song. I couldn't tell you what the lyrics about. It's probably something perverse, or subtly perverse, as Bon Scott was kind of known for every now and then. But yeah, Girls Got Rhythm. Talking about rhythm, it's just like the rhythm of that song is just undeniable. It's so catchy. I couldn't tell you what the tempo is, but like if you're a songwriter or practicing drummer, whatever tempo Girls Got Rhythm is the perfect just kind of like up-tempo, mildly up-tempo rock song. And I practiced that one over and over again, just ad nauseum. So it's just kind of like embedded into my my DNA at this point when it comes to drumming for that. And if I'm thinking of a song and like how to apply a certain, what do I want to apply to this song? Like, do I want it up tempo? Do I want this kind of? Girls Got Rhythm is one of the songs that I reference just in my own kind of mind as to a high water mark to kind of get to and to shoot for. I never get there, but I try. And then, there's like, If You Want Blood, You've Got It. Shot Down in Flames is amazing as well. And then there was a Notorious song on here. Well, it's still on here. The song was Notorious at the time, Night Prowler. There was a famous story about a serial killer in the United States, and it was kind of like the album got associated with that a little bit. And so, it had kind of, the album always kind of carried this dark kind of vibe to it. Just, the album artwork and some of the subject matter. And, but I mean, like, it's just whatever. It's you could put this on at a party and people are going to have a good time listening to this. This is a no frills, a good time. It's a good time Sally, this record is. It's like, I don't think anybody would be bummed out if they heard a few songs off of this. But yeah, Highway to Hell, it's undeniably one of the greatest like rock and roll songs that's ever been written. Still on the radio fairly often on certain genre stations to this day. It's never going to go anywhere. That song it's going to ride the sands of time forever. Malcolm Young is Phil Rudd's obviously a huge influence of mine, but Malcolm Young, I always was a big admirer of his guitar playing, and also the fact that him and Cliff, the bass player, was it Cliff Robertson? Cliff Williams, that's right. Cliff Williams and Mal Young were always okay being the two kind of, on each side of the drums, and that those three guys were very unified in their, they're kind of, I hate to use the word background role, but when you're a band that has Angus Young and either Brian Johnson or Bon Scott, you don't need to be the entertaining focal point of the group. And clearly, and if you know about ACDC's history and anything like that, Malcolm Young was ACDC. It was him and his brother's band. He was the leader. He was the songwriter, and Angus Young gets a lot of the credit just because of his bombast and the showmanship and things like that. But the real guts of AC/DC, in the two brothers. But the heart of AC/DC was in Malcolm Young, and unfortunately, he's not alive. There's a real trend in my videos where there's a lot of people I really admire that aren't alive, but I guess that's what happens when you listen to old music. So, luckily Phil Rudd is at least still alive, so that's great. But he's not in the band anymore either, so it's not that great either. But yeah, if you want to have a good time, if you're trying to start a party at somebody's house and the mood's not quite there, just put on this. You could also put on Back in Black, but put on this. This is Bon Scott, and that guy is just it's a weird word to use, but there's something charming about when you see him perform live, and there was always just this kind of like you could tell he was a real hellraiser and an authentic guy, and the authenticity is kind of what I always found really appealing about AC/DC. no frills, no elaborate, crazy stage antics or things like that. Like they had their thing. The songwriting was always focused, and hey, if you're writing the same song over and over again, and the same song is an amazing hit, it's just like it's not the same song over and over again. But you know what I'm saying? It sounds the same, but it's the band. It's just some bands don't have these things where they go through like a multitude of genres and experimentation and things like that. They stick to their thing. And AC/DC at the root of things was a blues band, a bar band, a pub rock band, and they never tried to be anything else besides that. And this album is a testament to that ethos in the band. And look at, he didn't even dress up for the album cover; just wore his white T-shirt they had. Used to be how it was. But yeah, check this album out if you haven't. I'm sure you have. But if you haven't listened to it for a long time, like me, put it back on and take it for what it is. Simpler time, simpler songs, but some of the greatest music that's ever been written. So this is the one about AC/DC, Highway to Hell.